And here we have Bitcoin. I want to start off with the analysis with a big differential between the short-term timeframes and the higher-term timeframes, of which, yes, yesterday we did get that downside below $44,500. Just ticking below there was bad enough, but the daily closed below there as well. So that's really going to set into motion the biases for the next probably a couple weeks to come as things do come to fruition. Now, juxtapose that against the short-term timeframes, which we're going to go into right now, and I would actually be looking for a bounce on Bitcoin. We are coming down to the 55 exponential average on the daily right here for what it's worth right now, and also on a bullish retracement for the Fibonacci's at about the 0.5 as well, which is a common bounce area. So very likely to bounce in the short-term timeframes, of which would I give it a chance to potentially put in something resembling a bit of a bear trap right here? It is a possibility as always, but what makes what makes an analysis is a validation and an invalidation point. And to validate a bit of a bear trap would be at minimum for Bitcoin to pop back up and close even a short-term time frame, even a 4-hour in this case, back above the 618 Fibonacci retracement on this current move. So again, this is a higher-term time frame fib versus a lower-term time frame fib right here. Just kind of gauging where those major areas are at. And in this case, short term, very likely to bounce. Bounces can come up very easily towards $44,000, maybe even $45,000. But again, as long as bounces fail to get back above either $46,000 on a higher term time frame, namely a 12-hour or daily, or especially above, or a 4-hour above about 46,500, I would look at that as just another lower high, getting ready for essentially lower. Now, with that in mind, all lower term time frame momentum oscillators are essentially looking like they could very easily bounce right here in the short term. We see 6-hour stochastic momentum coming all the way down. Keep in mind, it is actually not crossed the upside just yet, and will be remaining with downside pressure as long as Bitcoin's closing below 43,750 or so. Full hour is also in a same region as well. Very aggressive down here, but 43,650, the magical number to force it back up. And then we can go down to maybe like a 2-hour and then an hourly, just see that they're all on the same side. Bi-hourly also very much in the critical zone, looking for a bit of a corrective move coming off of very high volatility right here, and 43,200 going to be the magical number, of which Bitcoin is currently above by about $100. And then the hourly, as you can see, is also freshly crossing up. Again, a bit of a corrective move very likely in mind here as volatility does cool off, but 42A going to be the magical number for this one. So short term, very likely to bounce. But again, do not confuse bounce with the same thing as reversal, or at least I would not, until Bitcoin's at minimum back above about $46,000 on a daily closing basis, nothing less. If that were to happen, hey, this would be, a bit of a higher low right here. And, we can start to talk about targets north of $50,000 plus over time, of course. But until that happens, I do look at this as there are several more bearish things actually on the board right now that have been confirmed in comparison to the bullish things that are present but unconfirmed, which, obviously things that have actually been confirmed, do hold more weight. So what am I essentially talking about? What am I going off of right here? Well, we need to combine the whole picture, obviously. And one of the big pieces of this picture has been on the crown trading application, or just anywhere that you can get the global open interest, that is, with it getting above 14 billion. Now, we can't see the data because it only tracks it for a year here, but if we were to go back for the last couple of years where it's gotten above 14 billion each and every time, which there's been, I think, five or six each and every time that we have seen that, plus a local high, minimum 20% pullback, and in some cases even 50%. So I'll give you an example from a little bit more recently. That's going to be coming off of, well, obviously the $69,000 all-time high that we currently have right now from November. But even this one that we saw more recently over here in late December at about $51,000, $52,000, of which obviously as soon as Bitcoin confirmed a local high right there, which was in this little stutter step right here, well, the downside did emerge from there. And in this case, this was actually more than 20% as well, actually 35%. But we've seen this several times in the past couple of years here, of which once that local high is confirmed, the unraveling of these, kind of egregious leverage positions typically does bring things, or it doesn't typically, like it has always brought things lower. Now, of course, this is a game of probability and statistics. Doesn't mean it's always going to happen, but the setup is there, obviously, and that would imply lower over time. On top of that, we do see that funding rates are actually positive right here. They're very slightly positive, to be fair. This is kind of a moot point, or really splitting hairs, but it is present, and this would be a lot easier as a higher low call if you saw these funding rates get immediately very negative, of which we don't have that right now. When I say immediately very negative, I mean like what we saw back on over here in late January on this spike down to what is Bitcoin's current low for this last move to the downside, about $33,000 or so. That's a good indication that you do have a major local low in this case. We're not seeing that, at least for right now. Anyways, on top of that, Let's go back on over here. And, why am I pointing this out with the open interest? Well, Bitcoin has confirmed a local high as of yesterday, coming back down and closing below our very critical region of $44,500 on basically all time frames that matter in this point. And we do see that higher term time frame momentum oscillators are starting to turn down as well. So let's go over here for the daily. And we do see the daily is actually nosediving below 46,630. So, we are starting to see that 46,000 number come up. It doesn't mean that it can't, pop back up around there, but you're seeing a technical breakdown, a local high confirmed plus momentum also turning down as well. I mean, that's one of the most ancient strategies, the most simplistic strategies, and it's one of those things that typically just works, for lack of a better term. We also see that DMI is supporting the downside move as well, as long as Bitcoin is closing below $46,000. Very key point right there. Anyways, other than that, the buy daily, it also closed last night as well. And we're getting our first cross to the downside, and that will be remaining with downside momentum as long as Bitcoin is below 47,700 or so. So that has a long way to go right there. And then also I want to reference one of the big things that we were focusing on yesterday that was kind of aligning with a move happening sooner rather than later, that 20 or so plus % move, and that would be the daily BBWP, of which we did see expansion from yesterday's lows at single digit percentiles at about 6% or so, or just below, sorry, not percent, but percentile. Anyways, to give this its due diligence, we can just very briefly and quickly back test a couple of the last times that we did see extreme lows like this, which was back on over here in February, early February, in the middle of February. We could even do this one as well, obviously. And of course, volatility is direction neutral. But my point is that first move from that extreme low expansion was essentially the direction for the next, in this case, about 23.5% right there. In this case, it was to the upside, but you'll notice that the first move was to the upside in this case. So that first move off that expansion, that first bar, that first dildo was straight up, and then you get continuation. And that first day did the majority of it, kind of like what we're looking at right now as well. In fact, that first day did about 11% actually. The next one to the downside was actually just a couple weeks later, as you can see right here. And in this case, that first move, right here, done, did most of it in the first day, and then continuation to your next closing low about 16-17% later. If we go on a wick basis, about 23% as well, which is very much in alignment with what we just saw. And then the most recent one that we did see was coming to the upside actually, and again, that first day, big expansion, and then follow through all the way up about 22 or 21.5% move right there as well. Now, of course, we can backtest this further as well. I don't think that is necessarily necessary right now to be redundant, but in this case, we do see that first expansion phase right here, and the first move has been down, also confirming a local high at the same time, also with that rather high open interest read that has historically led towards major unravelings, also with positive funding rates, also with this as well, which I was focusing on the last day, and the daily Gaussian over here on CME. We did close below the top side of it, and very likely do come down to test around the medium band overall at about 42,000 to 42,500-ish region. Probably another bounce in mind right there as well. But ultimately, I do, based off of that, likely look lower because we will confirm something rather nasty on the next 5-day closure. Now, to be fair, it's not happening today, tomorrow, or the next day. It's happening in 3 days from now, So that would be maybe alongside the weekly closure as well, if I'm doing my mental math correctly. But if it does close anywhere below $44,500, then we will confirm hidden bearish divergence right here on the 5-day RSI, and that would also be alongside that very low, extreme low, I should say, 5-day BBWP read, which I've been kind of using to judge this analysis for a long time now. That was kind of giving me the bullish hopium right here. I wouldn't say that the bullish hopium is fully over, but if you get this signal, I would feel quite confident saying that, at least for a while. And that would be this. We see extremely low volatility. Is this the chart that I was using? No, it was this one. This one? Yes, this one. We see extremely low volatility, and then if we were to see the 5-day stochastic momentum turn to the downside, which will happen with any sort of a 5-day closure below $42,000, that would be not just a turn down, but also rejection of the bullish control zone, which is where we have seen the last 2 major moves to the downside kind of occur from. So I do think that that is at stake. It's still a little bit further away from being fully confirmed, as we have not gotten this full-on confirmation on the expansion of this volatility just yet, but that's kind of what's at stake right now for the for the boo laws, I suppose. And I would go as far as saying that as long as Bitcoin's below, especially $46,000, the probabilities have now turned significantly in favor of the bear laws here. Again, keep in mind, short-term timeframes very likely to bounce, but a bounce is not the same thing as reversal just yet. So if I were to pull out maybe another like what if drawer of hopium right here, it would be this. It would be, hey, look, Bitcoin got its higher high right here. It's having a technical pullback down to the 0.5. It's going to put in a higher low. We would expect to see potential hidden bullish divergence on that, and it would be there, to be fair. But in order to confirm that, Bitcoin at minimum needs to get back above about $46,000. At least in the way that I look at things. And until then, everything's just kind of a lower high, and short-term corrective moves very likely lead towards daily continuation here, probably into next week. So with that in mind, I should probably look at maybe we go look at tether dominance. I think this one's been rather consistent as well. We were looking for a bounce in this week. We've gotten that bounce. Do we look for continuation on top of that? I could kind of come at this from a couple ways as well. If I am going to be bearish, this is kind of where you expect a lower high and hidden bearish divergence to form right here, which it will be possible, but that would be the more bullish look on this. So what would that essentially look like if it were to happen? Well, of course, it's just easier to watch for Bitcoin back up about 46. But in this case, I would say that would be fully confirmed with any sort of a daily closure below about 409. That's 409% in this case, and very likely plays back down to the lows and trades low over time, of which I think I very likely think that it will, but for right now, that's a little bit further away for the time being, so I don't think it's as necessary to be speaking about. Anyways, I think that's going to do it for today's analysis. Maybe I should go over like a continuation condition here before a bounce, which I suppose is possible. If we do see a medium-term time frame closure, let's say like a 12-hour below about 42,500, I suppose I'd be looking for a move down to like $40,000 first, and a bounce there before any sort of short-term time frame bounce emerges. I think it's a little bit less likely for the reasons that we postulated earlier, but I, as always, need to have those conditions overlaid right there. Anyways, I hope that was in some way helpful, and there you go for Bitcoin, sirs and zers.